Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Consider the Source podcast. So this was previously the Aspiring Adult podcast, but I had this recent revelation about changing it. So a little bit about me. My name is Sarah Smiles, and I am the host of the Consider the Source podcast, or previously known as the Aspiring Adult podcast. The Aspiring Adult podcast was essentially a podcast aimed at getting information to my generation or to young adults trying to figure out how to navigate post-grad life, whether it's post-grad college, post-grad high school, whatever that may be. And I found that avenue because I was asking my dad for advice on how to move from Ohio after I graduated college to Boston. And his advice to me about looking for an apartment was to look in a newspaper ad. That seemed a little bit out of touch to me because, first of all, I don't know the last time that I actually touched a newspaper. And second of all, there surely has to be a better way. And there surely is someone that has moved more recently than my father. And I felt like going to Google was a little bit difficult to try and find a path of where to go and where to look. So I ultimately ended up going on a Facebook group, which I kind of just found on a whim, to be honest. And I navigated it from there with two other girls that actually graduated from my school. And then I thought to myself, like, I can't be the only one that's also experiencing this difficulty. Surely other people are getting out of Ohio after they graduate college and have never lived outside of the state. But this was something that I felt like was missing in my realm of media, like something I was looking to consume but couldn't find. And so I decided that that was something that I wanted to put out into the world, was try and find people to interview, share my own stories about what adulting has been like and what questions I want to get answered. It wasn't necessarily like this is a how-to guide of how to do X, Y, and Z. It was more over just, hey, here's what me and this other person tried, or here's what I tried, and here's what worked and here's what didn't. Don't waste your time doing this, or maybe spend your time doing this. And it was moreover about everything and everyone, and it was about trying to figure out and navigate adulthood. Whereas I feel like recently I have been getting this really big urge or calling or whatever you want to call it to transition away from aspiring adult, mostly because I just hate the term adulting. And when I have to share with people that the name of the podcast is Aspiring Adult, it just seems very cliche and played out. And so I've decided to transition it to a different mantra of Consider the Source. So how that came to fruition and what that difference between the Aspiring Adult and Consider the Source is, well, Consider the Source is more of just like a hyper-focused version of Aspiring Adult. So Aspiring Adult was inclusive to everybody, and I guess Consider the Source is also inclusive to everybody, but I want to focus moreover on women with Consider the Source because I feel like there's a lot of voices that exist in media. And I'm not just talking podcasts, I'm not just talking radio, I'm talking in print, in social media, in really any facet. Like, women are a minority voice, and I feel like having women's stories heard is really important, especially as I have been getting older. I've realized that the majority of advice that I have sought out in my life, I have sought that out from men. And that's largely because I have two brothers. My dad raised us, and I just always found them more relatable. And then as I began schooling, I got really into STEM, and then majoring in engineering in college, I was still around men frequently. And it felt like that was just a natural order of me asking men for advice without really thinking that the advice that they're giving probably doesn't pertain to me as much as I would think. So let me give you an example. I remember when I was graduating college and all of my guy friends, even my dad, who is an engineer, was telling me how easy it will be for me to get a job because female engineers are really rare, they're really sought after, and every company wants them. And so my friends in engineering are telling me this, my dad is telling me this, my brothers are telling me this. I'm led to believe that it's true. All of these people, all of these men are telling me that that's the case. But when I'm applying for these jobs, I'm like, why is no one wanting me? Why am I not hearing back from any of the applications I submit? What's going on? Is this me? Is it my resume? I don't understand. I'm a woman. I thought that this was going to be easier for me. And then I have recently looked back on that scenario and have realized all of those people that told me it was going to be easy were men. Every single person that said, you'll have no problem finding a job, people are going to want you, people are going to think that you're a diversity hire, that ended up not being true whatsoever. And if I had taken the time to ask another female what their experience was like with the job search in engineering, surely I would have found out that they were having just as much difficulty as I was. So that really is sort of what has driven this focus of there's so many times in my life where I have turned to my dad for advice or turned to my brothers for advice simply because they're the people that I trust and they're the people that I look to. And so when I seek advice from them, it's because I trust them. And I was having such a difficult time of acknowledging that I wanted to make this transition and make it more focused and geared towards women and women's stories was because I felt like it was a not true version of myself, which sounds super weird when I say it out loud, but hear me out. So I grew up with all men and I went to school with all men, and pretty much my entire life has been surrounded by men. And so for me to feel like I can't ask advice from them, or for me to seemingly, what feels like to me, turn my back on them and be like, actually, you know what, I only want to talk to women, it felt sort of backwards and weird. And I know that that was an exaggeration, but that's what it felt like to me, of saying that I want to focus on women's stories and I want to focus on shedding light on what women in their careers do and what women who don't have careers do and what women who have families and women that choose to work out and women that choose to do X, Y, and Z, because it is just so much different than being a man. Because another example for you, I could ask a man how safe they felt when they were traveling alone. Whereas they might give me one answer. I ask a woman, they give me a completely different answer. As a woman, I didn't feel safe. I felt like men were an issue. I felt like I couldn't do X, Y, and Z. The more that I realized that it's not that I'm discounting what men are saying, it's moreover just enabling women's voices to be heard and allowing a platform that exists for women's voices to be heard is ultimately what I'm trying to do with this new platform or this new idea for my platform. But I hope that that all makes sense and that my intention comes across in the most purest of ways, because I don't want to say dismiss any advice that men give you, because hey, if it resonates with you, if it works for you, then that works for you. But all I wanted to share was that I think that women's voices should be heard just as loudly as men's. And that I think that if you want to look for advice about career growth or about running a marathon or about how to open an art exhibit, that I think would be beneficial to hear from a woman, because I feel like as a woman, my experience has been so different than my brothers, than my dad's, than my male friends that are my same age. It's just different being a woman. And I felt like I had always put myself in this box of, I'm not going to put it based on gender. I'm not going to define anything that I do based on gender. But I started realizing that a lot of the things that I did, whether it was my choice or not, was dependent on my gender. So what I want the intention for this podcast to be is ultimately to be a female mentorship guide, because I realized that I desperately wish that I had a female mentor throughout my entire existence. I really wish that there was a female that I could have asked career questions to, whether it was in engineering or whether it was in college or whether it was in finance or business or anything of the sort. I have realized recently that having a female mentor would have gone such a long way for me of feeling like I wasn't alone. So I want to share a few stories about what my life has been like, specifically my corporate career, because it's something that I feel like not a lot of men have had exposure to, and that a lot more women have had exposure to. Beginning first with my first job out of college. I moved to Boston. My dream to move to Boston and become a mechanical engineer. Although it was supposed to be at a biomedical startup, whatever, not the point. I did second best to that, which was a plumbing/bathroom accessories manufacturer. So I started my job here. I was super excited, and I had just worked the past 4 years at becoming a mechanical engineer. Like, I wanted that title so desperately, and I finally got it. I was working in the job. I had mentioned to the company that I was interested in startups and that I could help out with the startup that they were working on. And then it kind of escalated into the CEO and the president of the company suggesting that I go to the startup full time and help out that team and start building that small team. I was led to believe that it was going to be like some sort of opportunity where I could have a vast amount of growth and I could fast track my career. And I was like, wow, they really have a lot of faith in me. This is really impressive and rewarding, and I feel seen. And so I ate my pride of the title that I worked so hard for as a mechanical engineer to become a customer experience manager. And for those of you that don't work in tech, that's basically a consultant for tech. Like, you're consulting people on how to use the tech, how to improve something, how to improve their business model, how to improve X, Y, and Z by using said tech. So I started doing that. I liked it. It was fun. It was cool. I was excited to be on a small team. I was excited to be involved with the CEO. I was excited to be working in software. I thought it was a really fun opportunity. And I really didn't take the time to think that I had just worked so hard to become a mechanical engineer, and I had just worked so hard for this dream of working in Boston and becoming a mechanical engineer. And so I said yes to the offer, and I really wish that my entire motive wasn't just on growth potential, that my entire motive wasn't just on what's the next thing? How can I move here? What am I really doing? I feel like the advice that I was seeking was from men, or the people that I was seeking advice from were men. And maybe if I sought advice from a woman, things might have been different, but that ended up being a really pivotal part of my career, especially at that company, because it led me to have a boss that didn't particularly like me and didn't particularly think that I had valuable ideas. And that really, really belittled me, so much so that I had to leave the company. And then I'm working at another company, and I made the mistake of getting romantically involved with a coworker, to which then I decided to end that. It didn't end well. He did not receive it well. It was not taken well from him. And then that grudge continued to be held against me for the rest of my time there. And while he was receiving HR violations for his treatment towards me, he also was receiving a promotion, to which then I reported to him. So my experience in corporate America probably isn't unique, but it feels extremely unique because I don't have female voices who I've shared it with. And it has been difficult for me to feel like this is what corporate America is supposed to be like. You're supposed to hustle, you're supposed to do this, and then there's the reward. Because I've not yet seen the reward. I've only seen the negative ends of corporate America. The misogyny, yeah, that's really it. The misogyny. I was so optimistic of entering the workforce and believing that my ideas would be valuable, I would be taken seriously, and growth opportunities would be there for me, and mentors would show up for me, and I would have the opportunity to grow and learn. And that wasn't the case. And I remember being on the phone with my dad, and he asked me, well, is it something you're doing? Very well could have been. I'm not one to not accept blame when blame is due. But in these scenarios, I highly think not. And as I've continued my career, I have quit corporate America to go and work on a dude ranch, come back to corporate America to try and figure out what I'm supposed to do now. And I feel like that's my big qualm right now is, what am I supposed to do now? Why does everyone else seem like they know what's going on or that they have it figured out? If I have to log on to LinkedIn one more time and see that someone is so excited to announce or so happy to announce that they have been promoted to like some strategic data analyst, blah, 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 made up title name, I'm going to throw up Because what do you mean? Like, is that what you wanted to be when you were a kid? Is that what you've always wanted to amount to? Like, I'm so confused at what I thought that corporate America was going to be. I'm so confused and feel deceived about what I thought a career would look like, what I thought that a company would look like. I feel fooled. And I feel like I can't be the only one that feels that way. But every time I get logged on to LinkedIn, I can't help but feel that way. I can't help but feel like the position that everybody is in is what they've always wanted to do. I can't help but feel like everybody is starting a new job. And while that is great for them, I'm very happy for them, but at the same time, I'm still struggling to figure out what I want to do. I'm still struggling to figure out what my 10-year plan looks like, if that even exists anymore. So that's really where this podcast is looking to come in. It's looking at female mentorship. It's looking at where do you see yourself in 10 years, of what you want to accomplish, and receiving that advice from women. Because if I have to read another book by a Navy SEAL, I can't. Jocko Willink, I respect everything that you've done and thank you for your service, but listening to your audiobook is a crime against humanity. There's gunfire in the audiobook about leadership. What? Stop it. I can't. To me, it just feels like so disconnected. I understand that it's a very manly thing to want to be a Navy SEAL. I understand that it's probably the utmost difficult, both mental and physical thing that you could ever do as a man or woman. Sure. I just can't relate. I'm so sorry. I can't relate. I can't relate to you. I can't relate to the gunfire. I just need something that's a little bit more closer to home. And while the messaging was great, I do believe that you should have extreme ownership. I do believe that. That's a great message. I love that message. The delivery, I don't like. I really truly think that women have different perspectives and women have different voices and women have different ways of thinking, in addition to women just being treated differently and what's to be expected. Because although there's women moving up the ranks to becoming CEO at Fortune 500 companies, that's not the norm still. I still look within my own company and struggle to find any C-suite executive women, let alone mid-level managers that are women. I'm not talking about becoming the world's most successful woman. All I'm talking about is finding success for myself. And that's also another subject that I want to look to broach in this podcast, is that I want to look to see how people define success. What does success look like for them? Because if you don't understand someone's motives, why would you follow the advice that they give? So if my motive is completely different than your motive, why would you listen to what I'm saying? Because why would you want to arrive at the same end goal that I'm arriving at? So to be transparent, my idea of what success looks like is this Venn diagram. And you meet success when the two circles collide in the middle. So on the left side, you have fulfillment. This is where you find happiness. This is where you find joy. And that's in all avenues of life. It is in your career. It is in your relationships. It is in your personal life. It is in anything and everything that revolves around who you are. The other side of that is money, because what you deem valuable in the world comes with an actual price tag associated to it. And so if you really enjoy travel, you probably would like more money. Or if you really enjoy luxury goods, money is probably very important to you. So where those two connect, where they overlap, is where you find success. And ultimately, I feel like you're in one side of the Venn diagram or the other. At least that has been my experience so far. I have been in a job that I really was proud of being a mechanical engineer, and I felt really low on my idea of personal fulfillment. But the money was there, and I felt successful. So I would place myself on the left-hand side of that Venn diagram, okay? Then I was super, super fulfilled when I was working on a ranch. I was the most happy, fulfilled person that I've ever been in my entire life, but was making $14 an hour. Now, where we could have those two connect is the item that I'm constantly searching for. That is the elusive figure that I'm looking for. Because if you find that, you find success. Period. You are successful by your own standards, not by what society thinks is successful or what anybody else thinks is successful. But I really and truly do believe that those are the two sides of the spectrum of total fulfillment. And I guess it's not a spectrum, but it's more over that Venn diagram that I'm talking about. And you want those circles to get closer and closer together so that way they just completely overlap to be the same grid. That would be the ideal focus. That would be the ideal part of life, because currently I'm fulfilled in a lot of aspects of life. I'm fulfilled in the aspect that I'm making a lot of money doing my current job in corporate America. However, I'm not fulfilled in the sense that I don't really like it. I don't really feel like my purpose in this life is being plucked. I don't know a better word of saying that. I just feel like my purpose in this life is greater than the job that I'm doing. Although I'm getting paid very handsomely for it, is that worth it? Is it worth it to continue? So that's something that I am looking to take into consideration, but is again in that realm of that center section of looking for what success is. I would say I'm successful in a lot of different aspects of life, but I feel like the one for career is really, really struggling right now. So looking to try and figure out what that version of success is. And if other people have that same sentiment of there's definitely the money aspect and there's the happiness aspect, and those two never touch, well, I would like for them to. And that's what I'm saying. So I'm looking to have guests on. Maybe they don't share the same idea of what success looks like for me, but maybe they share the same idea of what success looks like for you. And so that's what I hope that listeners gain out of this new season or new saga that is the Aspiring Adult or Consider the Source. And I'm just really excited to see the direction and where that goes. So another thing that I want to talk about in this episode, and I know we've already covered a lot, but I feel like something that I really want to talk about as well is just ideas that are fluttering around in my head. So right now, I really and truly feel like we are on the verge of a renaissance. And I bet you thought I was going to say recession, renaissance, because with the growth in technology, with AI consuming virtually everything, literally anytime I get an email from someone, I can tell it's AI. Anytime I get on LinkedIn again, I can tell that your post is from AI. A text message that I receive, a photo that I see, everything is becoming AI, and a lot less originality and creativity is spawning up from that. And that everybody is using the same template of either how to go viral on TikTok or the same template of corporate growth and success. Like, it's really just not a one-size-fits-all scenario, and it's not very human the way that AI is being framed to us and that the way that we're consuming AI. And my idea is that we're on the cusp of this renaissance because so many of us are fed up with reading multiple hyphens in a row in a sentence on LinkedIn. Like, that is number one, the easiest way to spot if you're using ChatGPT for a response, first of all. Second of all, I think that we're all yearning for originality. I just saw this TikTok the other day of this guy expressing that there's been a death to originality, and that you even see that in cinema with the remakes of everything, like Lilo and Stitch just made into live action, of The Lion King, which was made into live action. And I get that's what works because that's what sells in the ticket offices, and that's what our generation watched when we were kids, and now we're starting to have kids, and so we're excited to see it in a different format. But at the same time, can't we think of something new? Can't there be some imagination that occurs and some creativity that occurs? And I feel like there's been a lot less emphasis that's been placed on like art or tangible things. Like, think of NFTs. Like, we're even placing value on things that we can't accessibly touch, which I guess isn't art in and of itself. But at the same time, it is just such a period of dull, depressing time that I feel like we're not really having much intellectual growth and that people are comfortable remaining stagnant. And that stagnant means that it's more robotic because it's coming from AI and it's a result of laziness because people are being stagnant. They're not wanting to even take the energy to write an email, which is fine. I do the same thing. But at the same time, if you're not going to have a creative outlet to then let out some creativity, that's all going to disappear. And we're all going to become these robotic versions, spitting out and spewing the same information to one another. And it's just really going to get very bleak and scary. But that is why I feel like we're on the precipice of a renaissance. And I need to do more digging into how the Renaissance got started because I believe that it was during a recession that the Renaissance came out of. So if you think about our current environment and the number of quote unquote recession predictors that you've seen on TikTok, which I recently have kind of been using as moreover as a roast to people, like your outfit today is a real recession indicator, isn't it? Kind of like a real low blow sort of joke, but nonetheless, something that can be utilized in your arsenal with some cultural relevance. But nonetheless, the talk of moving into a recession allows me to realize that people are going to need to start being